Did you know you can get in trouble for slurping soup in New Jersey or for serving apple pie without cheese in Wisconsin? Today we're chewing through 50 of the weirdest food laws ever written. Some are still on the books. Some are dusty relics that refuse to die. Either way, your snack has a rulebook. Grab a legal bite. Let's dig in. 1. Suspicious salmon. That's real wording. And it sounds like a detective who got hungry. The point was simple. Stop people from moving poached fish like normal stock. In practice, it turns a quiet handoff into a question. Where did this come from? If the answer can't hold up, the fish can get treated like a problem, not a purchase. It's wild that seafood can feel like stolen goods. But the law is built for the shady version, not your dinner. 2. Hands-only chicken. Gainesville, Georgia put it on the books as a publicity stunt. The crime is using a fork and knife on fried chicken in town. It's a tourism flex with a badge on it. Most of the time, it functions like a local prank, not a real threat. Still, the idea is the same. Your table manners can become a rule for a meal that's already messy by design. 3. The Slurp Ban. This one gets repeated as trivia, but the paperwork is hard to pin down fast. Treat it like a folklore law that captures a real social truth. Sound is a trigger. Some cultures treat loud eating as rude. Some treat it as normal. So the same bowl can be fine in one room and fight starting in another. Your noodles aren't illegal. Your volume is what gets judged. 4. Pink chowder. This one isn't a you get ticketed rule. It's a chowder war that keeps getting repeated like a law. White New England chowder is the local pride version. Red tomato chowder is the version that gets side-eyed in the wrong room. There was a famous moment in Maine, decades ago, where a bill was introduced to ban tomato in chowder. It's usually described as a joke or a stunt, not a serious modern crackdown. That's why the illegal tomatoes claim lives on trivia lists. But the real rule is social. Order the red bowl in a place that worships the white bowl and watch the table go quiet. Nobody needs a badge to make you feel wrong. Culture does the enforcement for free. 5. Fugu license. This is the serious one that earns its paperwork. Pufferfish can carry toxin that doesn't forgive mistakes. So serving it commercially is restricted to trained, licensed handling. Chefs learn the anatomy, the safe cuts, and the parts that must never touch the plate. Restaurants follow strict storage and prep rules too. This is a food law that feels completely fair. Because one bad prep isn't a bad review. It's an ambulance. You're not hungry anymore, right? 6. Backward donut. Ohio's walking backward while eating a donut is a classic weird law headline. Modern enforcement is basically a ghost story. But the image explains why it survives. Sugar, distraction, and a moving trip hazard. It's the snack version of texting while carrying hot coffee. All it takes is one fall, one complaint, one town meeting. And suddenly, the rule lives forever. 7. Pocket ice cream. You've probably heard this one. An ice cream cone in your back pocket is illegal. The story says it was meant to stop horse thieves from baiting horses to follow them. Today it's mostly a weird law legend, and it gets repeated with fuzzy details. The real takeaway is simple. The more specific a rule sounds, the more official it feels, even when it's just a relic or a myth. 8. Honk for service. Picture a late-night drive-in or small sandwich shop with car-side service. A horn tap becomes a way to call attention, not to start a fight. Noise rules get specific when a town gets tired of the same sound at the same hour. That's why this story survives. Even if the exact wording shifts, the nuisance logic is real. Your horn lasts a second. The complaint lasts a year. 9. Cheddar on apple pie. This one lives in tradition more than enforcement now. But it shows how food becomes identity fast. A recipe turns into a hometown flag. So people defend it like it matters. Because to them, it does. You're not just ordering dessert. You're declaring taste loyalty in public. 10. Insect Fragment Handbook. The FDA has a real defect levels guide. It lists how much unavoidable stuff can show up in food before it becomes a violation. Yes, that includes things like insect fragments in chocolate. It's not permission to be gross. It's a line for inspectors. Normal factory reality versus a problem batch. The weird part is the honesty. Your candy has a rulebook you never see until someone reads it out loud. Alright, same food, new fine print. Some of it's enforced, some of it's just still written down. 11. Chewing gum becomes a policy problem the second it hits the sidewalk. Singapore is the famous example. Selling gum was restricted hard after it kept showing up on trains, doors, and public floors. You can still find narrow exceptions through pharmacies for medical use. But the casual, grab-a-pack-anywhere life is not the default. It's less about the flavor and more about the cleanup bill. A tiny habit, a citywide mess. And once a city commits to clean, it doesn't negotiate with sticky. 12. A chocolate egg with a toy inside feels harmless. At a US customs desk, that combo can trigger a hard rule line. Food is not supposed to contain a non-food object inside it. That's why the same candy that looks normal abroad can get stopped or seized on entry. Parents learn this one the loud way, at baggage claim. The surprise isn't the toy. It's learning your candy has a legal category. And the category doesn't care if you swear you'll watch the kid. 13. Beer can be regulated like a recipe. Germany's famous purity tradition shaped what beer was allowed to be made from. It kept labels honest and ingredients tight. Modern brewing is broader now, but the cultural muscle still shows up in rules and expectations. Order a local beer, and you're also ordering a definition. Some places treat that definition like a flag, and they don't love improvisation. It's one of the few times a shopping list turns into heritage. 14. A cheese can carry a reputation that scares regulators. Casu marzu is the headline example from Sardinia. People describe it as a traditional cheese linked to live larvae during fermentation. Food authorities look at that and think, health risk, not heritage. That's why it's often treated as illegal to sell in formal markets. It survives more as a whispered tradition than a shelf product. Same reason bootleg perfume exists. Demand plus rules. And the more you ban it, the more it becomes a dare. 15. Haggis is a national symbol that runs into import rules. The strict traditional version includes sheep lung. In the United States, that ingredient has been restricted for food import. You'll see haggis-style products instead. They try to keep the vibe without the banned part. Quick interrupt. This is what regulations do best. They don't ban your craving. They ban the exact ingredient. And your dinner becomes a workaround on purpose. 16. Mayonnaise is not just a word on a jar. In US standards, it has minimum expectations for what it contains. If a spread misses the oil threshold, the label has to back off. That's why you see dressing and sandwich spread on shelves. It sounds like marketing. It's often compliance. Because the wrong name can be treated like a false claim. Reading labels starts feeling like reading a contract you didn't sign. 17. Milk chocolate is also a regulated label. It has minimum requirements for cocoa ingredients and milk solids. If a bar doesn't meet the standard, the front of the wrapper gets cautious fast. You get phrases like chocolatey or made with chocolate flavor. Not poetic. Defensive. The candy aisle is full of words that exist because regulators do. And the biggest brands hire lawyers for the same reason they hire chefs. 18. Maple syrup is where breakfast meets fraud. Real maple takes trees, time, and season. Fake maple takes corn syrup and flavoring. Labeling rules draw a line between maple syrup and pancake syrup. You can sell either. You just have to say what it is. The bottle isn't trying to be honest out of kindness. It's trying to stay legal. Same pancake, 2 price tags, and 1 label doing the work. 19. Parmesan shows how food names split across borders. In parts of Europe, certain cheese names are protected by geography. In the United States, the same word can be used more loosely. You can buy Parmesan that would never qualify back home. Same sprinkle. Different rule culture. If you travel, your shopping cart learns this fast. And your pasta has no idea it's part of a trade fight. 20. Margarine used to be treated like a social problem in some states. Health risk was not the point. The fear was impersonation. People didn't want diners thinking butter when it was a substitute. So rules demanded clear warnings in restaurants. Sometimes even a sign on the table. Consumer protection, but dramatic. Quick interrupt. This is a recurring theme. When money is involved, labels become law. And food becomes a trust game with receipts. 21. Raw milk turns the country into a patchwork map. Some places allow it at the farm. Some allow it through special programs. Others ban sales outright. Cross a state line and the rules can flip. The fight is always the same. Tradition versus safety. The consequence is also predictable. Fines, seizures, shutdowns. Even when the bottle looks wholesome, the label can say local, and the law can still say no. 22. Sushi grade sounds official. It isn't a regulated category in many places. It's a marketing phrase that shifts the burden to sourcing and handling. One shop uses it as a serious promise. Another uses it like a sticker. The smart move is to ask questions, not trust the font. Ask where it came from. Ask how it's handled. Same 2 words. Wildly different standards behind them. 23. The free lunch at old bars was never about generosity. It was strategy. Salty food makes you thirsty. Thirst sells drinks. During temperance eras, some places tried to ban the bait, not alcohol itself. The trick that pushed alcohol. It's the oldest retail lesson in history. The free thing is paid for later, and the plate is basically an ad you can chew. 24. Border agents don't see your sandwich as a snack. They see plant pests, animal disease, and risk. That's why fruit, meat, and dairy get seized so often. Many countries have strict lists for what can enter. You learn it when you try to bring home just one local sausage. The rule doesn't care that you're hungry. It cares about what spreads. The fastest way to lose a souvenir is to make it edible. 25. Unordered deliveries sound funny until bills show up. Cities and consumer rules often treat repeated surprise orders as harassment or fraud behavior. The moment it becomes a pattern, it stops being cute. Restaurants also get dragged into disputes they never asked for. Neighbors get annoyed. Drivers waste time. The law aims at the move, not the meal. Food is friendly. Paperwork is not. And the porch becomes a stage for someone else's mess. This is where food stops being just food. Now it's branding, borders, and safety math. The rulebook is not trying to ruin dinner. It's trying to decide what words mean, what risks are allowed, and who gets blamed when things go wrong. 26. A wedding menu says champagne. In many markets, that word is treated like a place name, not a flavor. Servers learn the correction speech by heart. Sparkling wine, unless it truly qualifies. Producers outside the region can make something gorgeous and still lose the label. And the label is the money. One word becomes a fence around a whole style. From the bottle to the menu board. Tiny bubbles, big paperwork. 27. Bourbon has a rule book too. In the United States, it's defined by how it's made and what it's aged in. Corn has to lead the recipe, the barrel has to be new and charred, and the spirit can't be fixed with added flavor tricks. That's why bottles brag about basics like wood, time, and nothing extra. Bars argue about real bourbon like it's a personality type. The name is not a vibe. It's a checklist that can get audited. 28. Scotch plays the same game with even more pride attached. To use the word, it has to be made in Scotland and aged for at least 3 years. It has to live in oak, and the rules get picky about what counts as Scotch versus something inspired. Export labels, distillery records, and government definitions all pile on. That's why Scotch style on a random bottle feels like someone wearing a fake badge. One word can trigger lawyers, inspectors, and a very expensive relabel. 29. Kobe on a menu is where truth gets slippery. Real Kobe beef is tightly controlled, limited, and documented. Most places using the word are selling a different premium cut and borrowing the name for sparkle. You'll hear Wagyu used like a magic spell to make it sound official. If it's legit, the staff can show proof without flinching. If it's not, you get a story instead of a document. A steak shouldn't need credentials, but that label does. 30. Foie gras turns dinner into a political argument. Some places restrict selling it over animal welfare concerns. Other places defend it as craft, tradition, and a serious culinary skill. Menus change quietly. The dish disappears, or it shows up under a different form, or it gets replaced with a look-alike. The law doesn't care that it's fine dining. It cares how it was produced. Tourists learn the hard way that the same plate can be normal in one city and forbidden in another. 31. Shark fin soup is another case where the ingredient carries the crime. In many jurisdictions, shark fins are banned from sale or possession, or restricted so heavily that serving them isn't worth the risk. Dried fins travel well, which made the trade easy to hide for years. Now enforcement hits the supply chain instead of the bowl. Restaurants swap to imitation versions because heritage doesn't protect you from wildlife rules. Food can cross a line from luxury to contraband without changing its look. 32. Sugary drink taxes feel invisible until you read the receipt. Some cities add a special tax to soda and sweetened drinks to push consumption down. No lecture needed. The price is the lecture. People notice it most when they buy for a group. One order, and the extra line item suddenly stings. The policy is trying to make the default choice slightly harder every single time. Same bottle. New math. 33. A letter grade in a restaurant window is not decoration. It's an inspection result made public on purpose. Owners clean like it's exam week because the grade hits sales immediately. Customers don't argue about it. They just walk next door. A bright A becomes marketing. A bad letter becomes a warning label you can't hide. Food safety turns into social pressure, and the street becomes the scoreboard. 34. Allergen rules turn menus into warning systems. Many countries require clear disclosure of major allergens, and the list is not small. Peanuts, shellfish, milk, eggs, wheat, soy, the usual suspects. One missing label can mean a medical emergency, not a bad review. That's why some kitchens treat one allergy like a full stop. New gloves, wiped surfaces, separate tools, fresh oil. Even a shared fryer can be a problem. A tiny note on a menu can be life-saving. 35. Oysters come with paperwork, even when they look like a treat on ice. Harvest areas can be closed quickly after contamination or harmful algae blooms. That's why shells are tracked with tags. Where they came from, when they were harvested, who handled them. Restaurants keep those tags because traceability is the whole safety net. If people get sick, officials trace the line back to the water. Fresh is not just fresh. Fresh is traceable. The riskier the food, the louder the clipboard. 36. Home baking runs into the same wall. Many places have cottage food rules that decide what you can sell from your kitchen. Dry cookies and shelf-stable breads often pass. Anything cream-filled, meat-based, or bacteria-friendly gets restricted. The allowed list can feel boring on purpose. You can be a great baker and still be told, not for sale. Because homemade doesn't mean safe for strangers. 37. Food dyes are a quiet border war. A color that's normal in one country can be restricted, banned, or forced to carry warnings in another. Brands reformulate to stay on shelves, because one ingredient can block an entire product line. That's why your favorite candy can taste slightly different abroad. Your tongue is tasting policy. The wrapper stays innocent, and the recipe does the traveling. 38. Organic is another word that sounds casual and isn't. In many systems, it's tied to certification, record-keeping, and audits. You can grow clean food and still lose the label if you can't prove the chain. Seeds, soil treatments, storage, transport. Misusing the word can bring penalties because consumers pay extra for it. The paperwork is the product. The sticker is the reward. Lose certification, and the word disappears overnight. 39. Ice cream has standards too. In the United States, ice cream is tied to minimum milk fat and a defined process. If it misses the standard, the label has to step down into softer words. That's why you see frozen dairy dessert, which sounds like sadness in a tub. It's not a branding choice. It's a legal boundary written on the front. Your freezer has definitions hiding in it. 40. Street food is the fastest way to meet a city's risk tolerance. Permits, inspections, hand-washing setups, hot holding temperatures, and storage rules add up fast. An inspector isn't judging your vibe. They're looking for basics: clean water, safe temps, separation, and a way to wash hands on the spot. Some cities tolerate carts until complaints pile up. Others enforce from day one. A cart without a proper sink can be shut down in minutes. The romance ends when the clipboard opens. The rules don't stop at the plate. They follow labels, packaging, and what you do with leftovers. This is the part where food law stops sounding like trivia and starts sounding like your receipt. 41. Honey looks simple, golden, sticky, honest. That is exactly why it gets faked. Some sellers cut it with cheap syrup and still call it honey. On the shelf, it looks the same. In the lab, it can look wrong. Regulators can treat that jar like a mislabeled product, not a creative blend. When the label lies, the trust goes with it. And the honest producers get punished twice. First by the cheaters, then by the suspicion. 42. Kombucha lives in a weird lane. It is tea. It is fermented. And it can drift into alcohol depending on the batch. Cross a threshold and a new rulebook shows up. Different labels. Different permits. Different shelves. Producers track it like a science project because one swing can change the category. A drink sold as wellness can land in the same bucket as beer, which is funny until a store has to pull it from the fridge. 43. Cheese can be legal in one place and a problem in another. A lot of that comes down to pasteurization and aging rules. Some systems require certain cheeses to be made with pasteurized milk. Others allow raw milk cheese, but only if it is aged long enough. Same wheel. Different safety math. Customs officers do not care how romantic your picnic is. They care about what grows when temperatures change. That's why travelers lose fancy cheese at borders all the time. The bag is fine. The dairy is the issue. 44. Eggs are the easiest way to feel two countries disagree. In some places, eggs are washed and refrigerated. In others, eggs are not washed and can sit out. Both systems have a logic behind them. Different farming practices, different contamination risks, different supply chains. Travel for a week and you will see eggs stored in a way that feels wrong. It is not chaos. It is two rule books that never shook hands. And yes, people argue about it online like it's a personality trait. 45. A chain menu can come with homework. Some jurisdictions require large chains to post calories right on the menu. Not hidden. Not optional. Right where you decide. The policy is trying to make the trade visible before you buy it. It also changes how restaurants design food. Portions shrink. Ingredients get swapped. Names get rewritten. A menu becomes a report card. Even if you ignore it, the numbers are still staring back. If the menu starts teaching, somebody passed a law. 46. Trans fat bans are a quiet example of policy entering the kitchen. Some cities and countries told restaurants to stop using certain shortenings and oils. Not as a punishment, as a risk reduction. It forced suppliers to change what they sold. It forced kitchens to change what they used. The customer rarely noticed the ingredient swap. But the health goal was long-term, not dramatic. One invisible ingredient, pushed out by rules. You didn't choose a different oil. The city did. 47. Plastic straws became a fight that was never only about straws. It was about waste showing up everywhere. Some places banned them. Some limited them. Some made them by request only. Restaurants became the enforcement zone because they hand you the straw. Customers react like it is personal. But the policy is aimed at a mountain of trash, not your drink. A tiny tube became a symbol. And now you get handed a paper straw that melts like it has stage fright. 48. Kids' meal rules got clever. Some places required the default drink in a kid's meal to be water or milk. Parents can still ask for soda, but the default stops nudging kids toward sugar. That is policy as a gentle push. No lecture. No ban. Just a new normal on the menu board. A small choice, repeated millions of times. The rule isn't trying to parent you. It is trying to stop autopilot. 49. Takeout containers can turn into a problem without warning. Foam boxes and certain single-use plastics get restricted in many cities. The reason is boring and brutal. They are hard to recycle and easy to litter. Restaurants switch to different packaging. Costs creep up. Your food arrives in a new box that feels flimsier or fancier. Nobody cheers. But the supply chain changes overnight, and your quick takeout comes with a policy lesson. 50. Food waste is where shame turns into policy. Some places push stores and restaurants to donate edible leftovers instead of trashing them. Others discourage destroying usable food on purpose. It is not simple. It needs logistics, safety rules, and partners who can distribute food fast. It needs cold storage, pickup schedules, and clear liability lines. But the goal is clear. Less waste. More meals. The weird part is realizing this needed a law at all. Because the problem wasn't a lack of food. It was the system choosing the dumpster. Final verdict. Food laws are not just weird bans. They are definitions, safety lines, and words that can get you in trouble. Some are modern and serious. Some are old and theatrical. Either way, the lesson is the same. A normal meal can carry a hidden rulebook. And you usually meet it when you are hungry, or when you cross a border, or when the label uses the wrong word. If you want a follow-up, tell me which category you want next. Labels, imports, or restaurant rules. This is for information and entertainment. It is not legal advice. Rules vary by place,